So next session is from Tobi's summer, revolutionizing industrial IoT integration, harnessing NodeRED's power from H2 cloud. Industrial IoT インテグレーションの革命ということですかね。NodeRED パワーをH2 クラウドから活用していくと、そういった内容のセッションです。Please go ahead.
So, thank you for the introduction. Sorry for the complicated title. It was created by marketing. So, I want to take you a little bit on a journey today, talking about industrial IoT, where is kind of this industry and what place has NodeRED in this industry? Really from really engineering companies on big scale. How can NodeRED help, and how did NodeRED help in the past? So I myself, Tobias Sommer, I work for a company called Cumulocity, which is part of a bigger German group called Software AG. And so I'm with this Cumulocity company for more than 10 years. When I joined, it was like a 6-people startup. Now we are roughly 300 people just in the R&D. And we've been for many years a leader in industrial IoT platforms. So we are a software company that sells platforms. And I still remember, like when we were a startup, the very first project that we actually did as a startup was with a small real estate agent company. And they had a very simple challenge. When they got a customer that wants to sell a house or an apartment, this customer gave them one key. And then they need to send the engineers that need to send cleaning stuff. And every time they need to go to the office, pick up the key, go to the apartment, do their job, bring back the key. So they developed a small gateway that we actually hooked into the doorbell system. And then via the cloud, they could just, if the cleaning stuff went to the apartment, they just called in the office, and then someone clicked in the cloud and they could remotely open the door. A very interesting use case. It worked not at all. The technology was not good 10 years ago. We had a mobile network, a lot of connection losses. So, but we've grown over the time. So one of the bigger projects I worked in the last year, we have a big customer elevator company. They have more than 1 million devices connected and manage them on a daily basis through our platform. And so at the moment, projects, for example, AI cameras, we have a project here in Japan. Unfortunately, I can't name the company behind it. So this is kind of the area where we are working. And our product, I will only mention it here. Actually, the presentation will not show our product at all. It's really focused on, similar like NodeRED, it's focused on bringing tooling to non-developers that want to have a graphical user interface and want to quickly build this IoT solution. Because we are a platform company, we don't build the end solution. So if you look at the world of industrial IoT, it's super, super complex. And there are two big areas that are very difficult for essentially every company that we encounter. The one is more like the technical challenge of getting assets connected. So I believe everybody here in the room using NodeRED, you will connect any IoT device to any cloud platform in less than 10 minutes. The problem is doing that for 1 million devices. So doing it on scale, that is always the challenge. And that is a very big challenge for the big companies. If you think about a factory floor, or if you think about companies that have millions of assets, maybe excavators around the globe, so achieving that is very challenging. And about this part, and how NodeRED can help there, and how NodeRED is helping there, I want to talk today. And just to mention the other challenge is more the business challenge. We're talking here about industrial companies. So a company that is maybe producing industrial robots, they are a hardware company. They produce hardware and they're selling hardware. And now they need to transform into a service company. In the future, they don't want to sell the robot, they want to sell a service where they will place robots in your factory and you pay maybe per usage hour. And that is a huge challenge for all the industrial companies around the globe because they are lacking this mindset for switching from a hardware company into a service company. But we will focus today, this is a technical round, we will focus on the technical challenge. And I want to start with a true story actually, where for myself NodeRED made a huge difference. And it takes us back 5 years ago, and I got a call from our CTO. And he came out of a meeting with several other CTOs and CEOs. They wanted to form, between software companies and industrial manufacturing companies, they wanted to form a joint venture. And he called me and said, you need to go to this prospect next week, 7 hours away, go there, connect their machine. And that was roughly the information I got. So we're talking here about a Japanese-German CNC machine maker. I was in Germany at this time. And yeah, I didn't know what to do. So I actually went there, and together with their product manager for digital solutions, we went on their factory floor. And he was already, we talked earlier via mail, and we decided, okay, let's use NodeRED. So he prepared on his laptop NodeRED, and he already connected the machine because he knows the machine with the industrial interfaces. He connected it already to NodeRED. And all we had to do is now connect it to the IoT platform. And so we set that up. We really went with a laptop next to the machine. We put in the cable, and then we configured the MQTT blocks in NodeRED to connect it to Cumulocity IoT. And after 15 minutes, it was working. And he already couldn't believe it. So that, because I traveled there 7 hours, and after 15 minutes, I essentially could travel back. We decided, okay, let's make a video, like very cheap with our smartphone. We made a video where we then showed, okay, in the cloud, we set some configurations, and then we moved to the machine, and on the machine UI, you could see that the configuration changed in the cloud. And that was 5 years ago, and he sent this video essentially to his boss. And we did then, he gave me kind of like a tour around their factory. And after 1 hour, he received an email from the CEO of this company. Somehow this video reached the CEO of the company. And the CEO of the company sent it to all the other CEOs in this joint venture. And like with that, they were all convinced to set up the joint venture. And it was then also in the months later, they set up, they invested a lot of money to set up this IoT joint venture to bring together different machine makers, which weren't competitors, to together solve really this challenge: how can we get machines connected into the cloud? And yeah, the reason why we were so fast is really NodeRED. And so today, this customer still exists. So they have roughly 10,000 machines connected. They do device management via our platform. So they deploy, for example, the latest software on the machines or the firmwares, and they're doing it on a daily basis. But they no longer use NodeRED. So they essentially decided to scrap NodeRED completely, and they developed it on their own. I think it was an OPC interface, an old one, and they developed their own software that they now also manage through our platform. And now maybe you're a little bit confused, because I said at the beginning it was very complex. Then I said, okay, we did it in just 15 minutes. And now I say, okay, they're no longer using NodeRED. So what was the problem? The problem is scale. So it's very easy to connect one machine, but doing that on a regular basis, on the scale of a large fleet, where you on a daily basis, you need to replace software, you need to update the integration into the interface. You need a process that really works. You can't send engineers every time to these gateways and change NodeRED configurations. And both we and also NodeRED simply 5 years ago wasn't in a state where that was easily possible. But luckily now it is, and that's what I want to show you. So how can we do that now with NodeRED and with scale? So the challenge that we really face is, how can we manage, let's say, 20,000 NodeREDs around the world on edge gateways through a single pane? So we have one small team somewhere sitting in the world, and they need to manage and update all these things. And that is also how the industrial IoT landscape nowadays look like. If you look maybe 7, 8 years ago, you had machines connected to the cloud. And that was still quite simple, because these machines, that was really industrial machines, you anyways didn't really want to manage them. It was a bit security risk. So they were all a bit hesitant. We just send the data, there's no risk. it's not worth anything. But nowadays, every machine has an IoT gateway. So something like an industrial Raspberry Pi or so, embedded Linux level. So you have a new hardware which needs security updates, software management, configuration changes, and all these things. So you're introducing more and more IT hardware into your factory floor, which is highly critical. So since a couple of years, it becomes more and more important that you can manage also these gateways in between, which essentially don't add any value themselves, usually. They are just a connecting piece in between. Now of course it's moving more and more, so there's like AI and analytics on these gateways as well, so they're adding value. But traditionally, these are just Linux boxes that need to be somehow maintained. And what we did 2 years ago is, because we have a lot of hardware partners like IoT gateway makers, and the way that works in the industry is everybody does it themselves. They all have some kind of software. Some gateway makers actually use NodeRED. They have NodeRED installed, pre-installed on their gateways, and then tell their customers, okay, please use NodeRED for these integrations. Others have like stuff like codices, like soft PLCs, or they have some complete own software there. And if you then want them, because our interest is that they are integrated in our platform, same as like for Azure or AWS, for every platform vendor, it's about how many gateways can you have that are out of the box working. So we got together with some gateway vendors and industrial companies and said, okay, let's do one open source framework that abstracts this layer of the IoT platform so it can talk to all IoT platforms, and it solves this challenge of the software management. So we really wanted to focus on managing the IoT gateways. We didn't want to focus on integrating protocols, because there's a lot of software around, like NodeRED is one good example, but there's a lot of professional software for all these industrial protocol integrations. So we said, okay, let's put that out of scope. We really want to focus here on this greenish yellow part. We want to map data on MQTT to different IoT platforms. And we want to enable customers that they can do software management and firmware management and manage the configuration files on these embedded Linux devices. And the way it works is that there's an MQTT broker installed, it's usually Mosquito, and then the ThinEdge software, which is written in Rust, is installed on the gateway itself. It will configure the MQTT broker to bridge it to whatever platform you want. And then internally it will speak ThinEdge protocol, which is in the end also just MQTT. But you no longer need to worry about integrating into different platforms. So if the customer wants to switch from Cumulocity to Azure, they just reconfigure the ThinEdge. They don't need to touch anything else. That is the whole idea behind this project. And so the way the ThinEdge community works, so it's completely open source. So SoftwareG itself invests a couple of full-time developers that maintain this project. And there are also other companies that invest full-time developers that maintain this project. But essentially everyone, it's open source, everybody can contribute, and there are also external developers that just on their private basis contribute to the ThinEdge. Together with like the companies involved in ThinEdge, some companies offer kind of productified versions. They install the same software but will give you support, or sometimes they sell other software. A lot of gateway vendors will want to try to sell you industrial integration software. So there are different like commercial offerings available, but in the end it's always the same code. It's the open source code that is available for anyone. So, and if we look at NodeRED, how can we bring NodeRED into that? So, and as we are doing, ThinEdge is focusing on the management of the IoT gateway, where NodeRED becomes really valuable is in the whole integration space, because there are so many blocks for all kinds of industrial protocols that you just can add to your flow, and you very quickly have these things available. So on these third-party modules that are here shown on the left, they are not part of the open source project, but they are, for example, sometimes part of the deployment of if you buy a gateway which has the ThinEdge pre-installed. And I want to show you now. I prepared a little bit live demo to give you an idea how you can do that and how that works with scale. So what I prepared is, so I have here one industrial gateway. It's actually sitting at my home. I didn't bring it. It's a German company. Technically, it's an industrial Raspberry Pi. So inside is a Raspberry Pi with industrial grade rugging. And I have NodeRED installed on my MacBook, just locally as a Docker container. And what we will do is, using the projects in NodeRED, we develop a project locally and then push it to GitHub. And then via Cumulocity, we can push and distribute this project to the gateways. And the gateways will just pull out of GitHub the project, install it, and run it locally. So let's see if we can achieve that now. So okay, so now we are in my local NodeRED, and I prepared already a flow. So what this flow is doing, so we have here just a very simple like trigger that triggers every 5 seconds, and it will just trigger 2 random blocks generating random numbers. So you can see here 1 integer number, 1 float number, and then we will put that into the JSON structure that the ThinEdge is expecting. So for like this is the measurement structure, it's just the measurement name and the value. We do the same here, just measurement name and value, and then we send it now to the ThinEdge. The ThinEdge is actually then in the end on the gateway running on local host. So we don't need to worry at all about authentication, security, because that is all delivered by the ThinEdge when it bridges to the cloud. So here we are just talking locally to an MQTT broker. We don't need any security. It's not leaving the gateway. So with this project I pushed into a GitHub repository. So we have here our flows just in the project structure. And you could see I even used a community node. So we have the dependencies as well defined in the project structure so that also the gateway knows which third-party nodes to install locally in order to run the project. So having that prepared, now we are in Cumulocity, and this is the gateway, as I said. So it's connected. At the moment, it's not sending anything. That's why it's on the top red, but it's connected. And let's just go quickly via remote SSH into this device so that I can show you that I'm not doing any trickery here. So now we are inside the device. And if we go now to our NodeRED folder, to the projects, you will see it's empty. So at the moment, nothing is installed. And now we want to install this project. And what I did in Cumulocity is basically upload this project. Here it's NodeRED Con 2023. This is our software. It's essentially just one text file that has the link to the GitHub repository so that it's pulled. So this is the one software piece, and the way we designed it is that there's a second piece which is called active project. So because we could install multiple projects and then switch between the project, whatever should run in NodeRED. So going back to my device, I will now push these 2 software pieces onto the gateway. So we have here the NodeRED project, and we want to activate it immediately. So click on apply changes. So now this command is pushed to the gateway. It's already received. It's now progressing, and now it's successful. So now, if we go back to our remote connection, if I now look into the project folder, I have now the project installed, and it's also running. So remember, I configured two data points, and if we now go here to a measurement, we see that now it's also here this random data is incoming in the platform. So now, like with this setup, we essentially have like a full developer flow, because we have now the developer somewhere in headquarters can design and build the actual integration. They can push it to a central repository, and then usually the people that push that to the devices is a completely different department. So they can manage the software, for example, through Cumulocity, but it's Synerg. They could also manage it through Azure or any other platform and distribute it now very easily across the whole fleet. So, and this cycle of updating devices, this is the key part of the in industrial IoT, because you will need a lot of iterations. It's very, very difficult to actually get devices productively working. So I get them sometimes like 100 pages specification, as we're like engineering companies, very proud. Very proud of their technology. They write 300-page document of their technical specification of the device. Everything very detailed. We program it there without any simulator, without any technical device. We bring it to the machine. It doesn't work, like 100% of the time. So you will need these iterations, and you can't always go to the machines. Even if you're in the same building, going down to the shop floor, it's just a hassle. So it's important for our customers that we talk to solve this challenge of scalability. And so we are in a round of mainly engineers, I think. So if engineers hear scalability, they think about technical terms, runtime, big O notation, vertical scalability of a VM, horizontal scalability, how many messages can I send through? If you talk to business people, they also talk about scalability, but they talk about something very different. So one of our customers, which is a large manufacturer of wind turbines, and they also operate these wind turbines for the energy companies. So the energy company comes, says, I want a wind park with 20 turbines. They will manufacture, install, and operate it completely. And they have simply already the challenge that they can't get enough people. For every wind park, they need to hire service people. And they want to double the number of wind parks, but with their like old model, they need to double the amount of service people. And it's not even about money, that it's expensive. They already face the challenge that there are not enough skilled people on the market. So they can't find the people to hire that. So their goal is really, they want to double the amount of wind turbines, but maybe only increase the service department 10% in terms of workforce. And they look very closely exactly at this. It's not so much about the technical scalability. It's really about, can I operate large fleets with small amount of people? Do these workflows work that I can, this iteration from a technical implementation from a developer to a global rollout into production? So that is really key. And now with like the newest versions of NodeRED, with the projects, there's actually a quite good mechanism where NodeRED can really help to speed that up if you build a little bit around it. And everything I showed today is open source, except the Cumulocity platform. So I have also here all the links. So like I said, the Synerg project is completely open source. This NodeRED plugin that the Synerg team built to manage NodeRED through the Synerg, it's completely open source. The example project I shared here, it's also open source. And yeah, if you want to try out Cumulocity, there's also a link. There's also a free trial version. But like I said, this is not about Cumulocity. It's really about how can you, in an industrial environment, manage really large-scale fleets. And it is possible with open source software. It is possible with Synerg. A lot of people are always shying away with open source software if there's no commercial support. But it is stable enough. And you can even, I forgot to show that. You have, for example, service monitoring inside Cumulocity. And so I just created basically a ping, a heartbeat in my NodeRED flow. I'm not sure why it's red, actually, it should be green. But you can essentially now monitor also if the NodeRED flow is working. So you have this monitorability which is really key. Because you need to know what happens, why did it fail, you need to be able to get there to change it, and that all in a scalable way. Okay, I think that is it from my side. Thanks for listening, and I think we have some minutes left. If there are any questions, feel free. You can also ask in Japanese.
Thank you, great presentation. 質問ございましたら、5分ぐらいありますので、多分2つ3つぐらいは。はい、マイクでお願いします。
すみません。先ほど垂直統合とか水平統合するとかいろんなやり方をおっしゃっていたんですが、僕の聞き間違いかもしれないですが、2万台ぐらいのエッジデバイスをシングルペンで管理していたりとか、たくさんの特に産業系の IoT になるとものすごいたくさんのデバイスがあるので、ドリルダウンというか航空管制みたいにこの地域のこのデバイスのこのフロアのみたいな形のどこに問題が起こっているのかを管理する際にどうやってそれをNodeREDのダッシュボードだとなんか力不足な感じもするので、そういう全体の障害管理っていうのをどういうふうに今検知されているのかがお聞きしたいです。
トビアスと一緒に働いているものですので、はい。Okay, he was talking about so device management with a massive number of the devices. So with the NodeRED dashboarding, it's not easy to identify the managing a massive number of the product. But in your scenario, so how you identify managing those devices?
Okay. Yeah, I understand the question. Yeah. What I showed was we just updating a single device. In Cumulocity, you have something called bulk operations. So what I can do, if I go, for example, I go back to device, and we go to the control plane. So we have here the operation that we send with the software update. And what we can do simply now is just schedule it as a bulk operation and send it to a group of 100,000 devices. And we can put like a delay in between so that we roll out. So for a lot of our customers with like 6-figure plus numbers, they roll then a software update over a weekend. So to really also don't stress the network. And so this is the mechanism in Cumulocity, how you roll out to a bigger group of devices. Usually you try out with one device. If the device still works, you roll out to a bigger group, and eventually you roll out globally. So that's the mechanism in Cumulocity.
ちょっとお答えになっているからですけど、Cumulocityの機能でバルクオペレーションっていうのがございまして、例えばその何万台っていうデバイスに対して先ほど OTA でこうNodeREDのソースを書き込みに行くという時にも、この機能を使って例えばそれが同時に起こらないようにネットワークのコンジェッションとかが起こらないように夜間の間に少しこうディレイを挟みながら上げていくとか、こういう機能は彼の場合今回はこのCumulocityのプラットフォームを使ってそれを実現しているという、画面になりますけど、お答えになってますでしょうか。
はい。
And I think the key question, he also worry about the NodeRED doesn't have enough power and enough resources to manage the lots of devices for NodeRED.
Okay, yeah, I understand. So, I mean, you would have one NodeRED per device. The NodeRED, there's no NodeRED here in the cloud. So actually, we also have NodeRED in the cloud, but I didn't use it. But in this scenario, you would really have on each gateway managing maybe only one machine, you have an own NodeRED. And of course, I share your worry, and that is like the big part also about NodeRED, and I think why a lot of industrial companies are a bit careful. It's in the end JavaScript, it's very memory hungry. And if you talk about IoT gateways, it can be very limited in terms of memory that you have. So, but usually, like with testing out, because companies don't usually suddenly add 100 additional tags. usually you do like smaller changes. So of course that needs to be tested in a lab environment. And that's why also the cycle, you develop locally, you test on a single lab device. If it still works, you monitor it for a week, and then you roll out to a like selected group and monitor it again, and then you roll it out globally. So this is really how our customers are working. They won't from it. They will not take anything from a developer and roll it out globally. It will take a month until it really hits then all the devices, because they need to ensure that the machine is still working.
You give me the summarize that's separated case by case to use each resources.
Yeah.
そうっていうことですね。ケースバイケースで、用途に合わせて、リソースをちょっと使ったりとか、その IoT ゲートウェイの中で、このシナリオの時はこういう、このシナリオの時はこういう感じっていうふうに、分けて使っていくということで対処していけたと思います。で、あとですか？大丈夫ですか？
Thank you very much.
はい、ではですね、お時間になりましたので、はい、お時間になりましたので、トビーさんのセッションはここでおしまいとさせていただきたいと思います。After that, we have the 10 minutes break. Thank you very much.